The invitation to my grandson Tyler's 7th birthday party arrived via text message, not a phone call. Party Saturday 2 p.m. Don't feel pressure to bring anything expensive, my daughter-in-law Amanda had written. The casual dismissal stung, but I'd grown accustomed to such treatment over the past year since my son David remarried. I arrived at their suburban home carrying a modest gift bag containing a wooden puzzle and some art supplies, things that cost $30 but would provide hours of entertainment. Through the window, I could see the backyard transformed into an elaborate carnival theme, complete with a bounce house, face painting station, and what appeared to be a professional magician setting up. Grandma. Tyler ran to hug me at the door, his face painted like a tiger. My heart swelled as I held him close. At least one person in this family was always genuinely happy to see me. Mom, you made it, David said, kissing my cheek. He looked handsome in his polo shirt and khakis, every inch the successful real estate agent he'd become. Amanda's been working on this party for weeks. I could see that. The decorations alone must have cost several $100s, and there were at least 20 children running around the backyard with their well-dressed parents sipping cocktails and making small talk. Amanda appeared wearing a flowing sundress and a strained smile. Helen. So glad you could make it. Tyler was worried you might not come. I wouldn't miss his birthday, I replied, handing her the gift bag. She glanced inside with barely concealed disappointment. Oh, how thoughtful. I'll just add this to the table with the others. I followed her gaze to the gift table, which was piled high with elaborate packages. I spotted boxes from expensive toy stores, electronics packaging, and even what looked like a child-sized electric car with a giant bow on top. That one's from Amanda's parents, David said proudly, nodding toward the car. They flew in from California just for this. Amanda's parents, Richard and Susan, owned a successful tech company and had never let anyone forget it. They treated David like their son and me like an unfortunate reminder of his first marriage. Richard waved from across the yard, where he was showing off his new Apple Watch to a group of impressed parents. They're so generous, Amanda gushed. Tyler is so lucky to have grandparents who can really spoil him. The implication hung in the air. I was the grandmother who couldn't really spoil him, who brought puzzles while others brought cars. What Amanda didn't know was that I'd been quietly setting aside money for Tyler since the day he was born. Not just small amounts, substantial investments that had grown considerably over 7 years. The trust fund I'd established was now worth over $2 million, carefully managed by my financial advisor and designed to provide for Tyler's education, first home, and early retirement if he chose. I'd kept it secret because I wanted Tyler to grow up humble, to understand the value of work and modest living. I'd also wanted to see how my family would treat me when they thought I had little to offer beyond my love. The party continued with the predictable rhythm of childhood chaos and adult conversation. I sat at a table with some other grandparents, making polite conversation while watching Tyler enjoy his special day. The magician was surprisingly good, and Tyler's laughter filled the air as he watched coin tricks and balloon animals appear from nowhere. Your grandson seems like a sweet boy, said Mrs. Patterson, whose granddaughter was in Tyler's class. He's wonderful, I agreed, watching him share his cotton candy with a younger child. These parties get more elaborate every year, she continued. Last month, we went to one with actual pony rides. I remember when birthday parties were cake and ice cream in the living room. I nodded, thinking about David's childhood birthdays, simple affairs with homemade cake and games in our small backyard. We hadn't had much money then, but we'd had something more valuable, genuine appreciation for what we received. Helen. Amanda's voice carried across the yard. Could you help me in the kitchen for a minute? I excused myself and followed her inside, where she was frantically arranging party favors into bags. I'm running behind on these, she said without looking up. Each bag needs 3 toys, 2 pieces of candy, and a thank you card. Can you help? For the next 20 minutes, I stood at her granite countertop assembling gift bags for other people's children while missing my grandson's party. Through the window, I could see Tyler opening presents, his excitement building with each elaborate gift. You know, Amanda said as we worked, David mentioned that you might be struggling a bit financially since your husband passed. I want you to know that we don't expect expensive gifts. Tyler just loves having you here. The condescension in her tone made my cheeks burn. I appreciate that, Amanda. I mean, we know you do your best. It's just hard when Tyler sees what other kids get from their grandparents and then. She trailed off, apparently realizing how cruel she sounded. And then sees what I can afford, I finished quietly. I didn't mean it that way. It's just that kids notice these things, you know? They compare. What Tyler didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been contributing to his college fund since birth, that I owned 3 rental properties that generated substantial monthly income, and that my late husband's tech stocks had tripled in value since his death 5 years ago. I'd chosen to live modestly in my small cottage, driving my reliable older car and shopping at discount stores, because those habits had helped me build wealth in the first place. But my family had interpreted my frugal lifestyle as financial struggle rather than financial wisdom. When we returned to the backyard, the present opening ceremony was in full swing. Tyler had worked his way through most of the expensive gifts, exclaiming over video games, sports equipment, and toys I'd never heard of. My wooden puzzle sat unopened near the bottom of the pile. Okay, everyone gather around. Amanda called out. Tyler's going to open the last few presents. The adults formed a circle while Tyler, now clearly overwhelmed by the mountain of new possessions, dutifully continued unwrapping. When he reached my gift, he held up the wooden puzzle with genuine enthusiasm. Cool. It's like a brain teaser, he said, already trying to figure out how the pieces fit together. That's from Grandma Helen, Amanda announced to the group. She always finds such unique gifts. Several parents smiled politely, the kind of smile adults give when a child receives something obviously less expensive than everything else. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, not for the gift itself, but for being made to feel small in front of strangers. Grandma Helen, said Richard loudly, approaching with his wine glass, we were just talking about Tyler's future. Susan and I have already started a college fund for him. Have you been able to put anything aside? The conversation around us quieted as other parents pretended not to listen while obviously straining to hear my response. I've made some arrangements, I said carefully. That's wonderful, Susan chimed in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Every little bit helps, doesn't it? College is so expensive these days. We've already put away $50,000, Richard continued, clearly showing off. By the time Tyler's 18, it should grow to about $200,000 with good investments. Murmurs of appreciation rippled through the crowd. Other grandparents looked impressed, and Amanda beamed with pride at having such generous in-laws. Of course, that's just for college, Richard went on. We'll probably help with a house down payment too, when the time comes. Family should take care of family, don't you think, Helen? I nodded, thinking about the trust fund that would not only cover Tyler's college and first house, but could support him comfortably for life if managed properly. Grandma can't afford a gift again. Amanda suddenly laughed, apparently feeling emboldened by her parents' display of wealth. But don't worry, Tyler, Grandpa Richard and Grandma Susan will make sure you have everything you need. The laughter that followed felt like a physical blow. These people, some of whom I'd just met, were laughing at the poor grandmother who couldn't keep up with the wealthy in-laws. Tyler looked confused by the adult dynamics he couldn't understand, and David seemed uncomfortable but said nothing to defend me. I excused myself quietly and walked to the bathroom, where I sat on the edge of the tub and tried to collect myself. The humiliation burned, but worse was the realization that my own family was comfortable letting strangers mock me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my banking app, looking at the accounts that contained more money than anyone at this party could imagine. The trust fund alone was worth more than Richard and Susan's net worth combined, and it was growing every month under careful management. But as I sat in that bathroom, listening to the party continue without me, I realized something important. I was tired of being humble. I was tired of letting people assume my worth based on appearances. I was tired of watching my grandson's other grandparents get credit for generosity while I was pitted for my perceived poverty. Most of all, I was tired of being treated like a burden instead of a blessing. When I returned to the party, the gift opening was finished, and Tyler was running around with his friends, testing out his new toys. Amanda was showing off the electric car to the other parents, taking credit for choosing such generous in-laws. I approached David, who was cleaning up wrapping paper. I think I'll head home soon, I told him. Already? But we haven't cut the cake yet. I don't think I'm needed for that part. David looked around at the elaborate party, the expensive gifts, the well-dressed guests who clearly had more money than his mother. Mom, You know Amanda didn't mean anything by what she said. Didn't she? She gets stressed about these things. She wants Tyler to have the best. And what am I, David? He looked confused. What do you mean? Am I the best? Or am I just what Tyler has to settle for when the real grandparents aren't around? Mom, that's not. Because that's how it felt out there. Like I was being pitted for not being able to keep up with Richard and Susan's generosity. David's face reddened. I'll talk to Amanda. Don't bother. I think it's time Tyler learned the truth about what kind of future he actually has. What does that mean? I smiled, thinking about the phone call I would make tomorrow morning. It means, sweetheart, that some gifts are too big to wrap in colorful paper. As I gathered my purse and said goodbye to Tyler, Amanda approached with her best hostess smile. Leaving so soon? I hope you had a good time. It was very educational, I replied. Thank you for including me. Of course. Family is family, right? Even when, well, you know. Even when what? I wanted to ask. Even when we can't afford to contribute meaningfully. Even when we're dead weight that successful people have to carry. Instead, I just smiled. Yes, family is family. Tyler will learn that lesson very soon. Amanda looked puzzled by my tone, but I was already walking toward my car. Tomorrow, she would understand exactly what I meant. Tomorrow, she would learn that the woman she'd just humiliated in front of 20 strangers controlled her son's entire financial future. Tomorrow, she would discover that her pitying laughter had just cost her family the most generous benefactor they'd ever had. But tonight, Tyler would go to sleep surrounded by expensive toys from grandparents who loved to show off their wealth. By tomorrow night, he'd know which grandparent actually had the power to change his life forever. I woke up Monday morning with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. The humiliation from Tyler's party had crystallized into determination. It was time to stop hiding and start showing my family exactly who they'd been dismissing. My first call was to James Morrison, my financial advisor, whom I'd been working with for 15 years. Helen. Good to hear from you. How did the weekend go? It was enlightening, James. I think it's time to make some changes to Tyler's trust fund. What kind of changes are you thinking? I want to restructure it so that access requires specific conditions. And I want David and Amanda to be fully informed about its existence and terms. There was a pause. Are you sure? You've been very private about this for 7 years. I'm sure. Can you prepare the documentation for a family meeting? I'd like everything official and clear. Of course. Should I include the portfolio performance reports? Everything, James. I want them to see exactly what they've been taking for granted. After scheduling the meeting for Tuesday afternoon, I called David. Hi, Mom. Everything okay? I need to schedule a family meeting for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Both you and Amanda need to be there. A family meeting? What's this about? Tyler's future. There are some things you both need to know. Mom, if this is about what happened at the party. It's about much more than that, sweetheart. Can you both be at my house tomorrow at 2? I guess so. Should I bring Tyler? No. This is for adults only. Tuesday afternoon arrived with unseasonably warm weather. I'd spent the morning cleaning my small cottage and preparing coffee and cookies, just as I would for any important guests. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was treating my son and daughter-in-law like the visitors they'd made me feel like in their own home. David arrived first, looking concerned and slightly confused. Mom, what's all this about? Amanda's worried you're upset about the party. We'll discuss it when she gets here. Amanda arrived 10 minutes later, dressed in her usual style, designer jeans and a blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She looked around my modest living room with barely concealed pity. Helen, if this is about Tyler's party, I want to apologize. I may have spoken thoughtlessly. Please, both of you sit down. We have a lot to discuss. At exactly 2 p.m., James Morrison knocked on my door. I'd deliberately not mentioned that my financial advisor would be joining us, wanting to see their reactions. David, Amanda, I'd like you to meet James Morrison. He's been managing my investments for the past 15 years. David looked confused. Investments? James opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Mrs. Chen has asked me to share some information about financial arrangements she's made for your family. Amanda's eyebrows rose. Financial arrangements. Let's start with Tyler's trust fund, James said, opening the folder to reveal official documents bearing the letterhead of a prestigious financial management firm. Tyler has a trust fund? David asked, his voice rising slightly. A substantial one, James confirmed. Your mother established it when Tyler was born, with initial funding of $200,000. Through careful investment and regular contributions, it's now worth $2.1 million. The silence in my small living room was deafening. Amanda's face went completely white, and David stared at the documents as if they were written in a foreign language. $2 million. Amanda whispered. $2,100,000, as of last Friday's closing, James clarified. The fund has been averaging 12% annual growth. David looked at me with something between shock and hurt. Mom, why didn't you tell us about this? Because I wanted Tyler to grow up humble and hardworking, not entitled. And because I wanted to see how his parents would handle financial responsibility on their own. Amanda found her voice. But we've been struggling to save for his college fund. I know. I've been watching you struggle to put away a few $100s a month while sitting on a fund that could pay for Tyler's education at any university in the world. James pulled out another document. The trust is structured to release funds for education starting at age 16, with full access granted at age 25, assuming certain conditions are met. What conditions? David asked. I leaned forward. Completion of high school with good grades, no criminal record, demonstration of good character and work ethic, and... I paused, looking directly at Amanda. And evidence that his parents treat all family members with respect and dignity. Amanda's face flushed red. What does that mean? It means, dear, that your behavior toward family members is now part of Tyler's financial future. James continued reading from the documents. The trust includes provisions for educational expenses, first home purchase, wedding costs, and a substantial inheritance. However, Mrs. Chen retains full control over distributions and can modify terms based on family circumstances. David ran his hands through his hair. I don't understand. If you have this kind of money, why do you live like what, sweetheart? Like someone who doesn't have money? Yes. You drive an old car, you live in this tiny house, you shop at discount stores. Because that's how you build wealth, David. By living below your means and investing the difference. I gestured around my modest living room. This tiny house is paid for. My old car is reliable and economical. My shopping habits have allowed me to save thousands of dollars that went into Tyler's future. Amanda was staring at the trust fund documents. This is more money than my parents have saved for Tyler. Much more, I confirmed. Your parents' $50,000 gift, while generous, is a fraction of what Tyler actually has access to. But why didn't you tell us? Amanda's voice was small now, lacking its usual confidence. Because I wanted to observe how you would treat me when you thought I had nothing to offer except my love for Tyler. The truth hung in the air like a challenge. Amanda looked down at her hands, clearly remembering her behavior at the party, her casual dismissals, her public humiliation of the grandmother who couldn't afford gifts. David looked devastated. Mom, we would have treated you the same regardless. Would you have, sweetheart? James cleared his throat diplomatically. Mrs. Chen, should I explain the modification options? Yes, please. Given recent family dynamics, Mrs. Chen is considering restructuring the trust to include performance requirements for the parents as well as the beneficiary. Amanda looked up sharply. Performance requirements. Respect for all family members, inclusion in family decisions, and acknowledgement of contributions from all parties, I said calmly. The same standards I would expect Tyler to meet. David looked between Amanda and me. Are you saying you might take away Tyler's trust fund? I'm saying that Tyler's access to his inheritance might depend on whether his parents can demonstrate the same values I want him to learn. Amanda started crying. Helen, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You didn't know I had money, so you felt free to treat me poorly. What does that say about your character, Amanda? I was wrong. I was completely wrong. You announced to a room full of strangers that I couldn't afford to buy my grandson a proper gift. You let them laugh at me. You let Tyler see his grandmother being mocked for her perceived poverty. David looked sick. Mom, I should have said something. Yes, you should have. But you didn't, because you were embarrassed by your poor mother who couldn't keep up with Amanda's wealthy parents. James packed up his documents. I'll leave you to discuss the family matters privately. Mrs. Chen, you can call me when you've decided how you want to proceed. After he left, we sat in silence for several minutes. Amanda continued crying quietly, and David stared at the floor. What happens now? David finally asked. That depends entirely on you and Amanda. What do you want from us? I want Tyler to grow up in a family that values people for who they are, not what they can provide. I want him to see his parents treating their elders with respect. I want him to learn that worth isn't measured by the price of your gifts or the size of your house. Amanda looked up through her tears. And if we can't prove that to you? Then Tyler will still have his trust fund, but it will be managed by professionals who will ensure he grows up with better values than his parents demonstrated. The harsh words hit their mark. Amanda flinched, and David looked like I'd slapped him. Mom, that's not fair. Fair. I stood up and walked to the window. Was it fair when Amanda announced to strangers that I couldn't afford gifts? Was it fair when you both let Richard and Susan take credit for being the generous grandparents while I was pitied for my poverty? Was it fair when Tyler had to watch his grandmother being humiliated at his own birthday party? I turned back to face them. I have been generous, supportive, and loving. I have secured Tyler's entire financial future while you both assumed I was a burden you had to carry. The question isn't whether I'm being fair now. The question is whether you can become worthy of the generosity I've already shown. Amanda wiped her eyes. What do we need to do? You need to examine why you treated me differently when you thought I was poor. You need to figure out how to raise Tyler with values that don't depend on impressing other people with expensive gifts. And you need to decide whether you want me to be part of this family or just someone you tolerate because you have to. David stood and walked over to me. Mom, you are part of this family. You're Tyler's grandmother and my mother. That doesn't change because of money. Doesn't it? Because money is the only thing that changed between Saturday and today. On Saturday, you both watched me be humiliated and said nothing. Today, you're apologizing because you found out I control Tyler's financial future. The truth was stark and uncomfortable. Amanda looked ashamed, and David looked conflicted. I want a week to think about how to restructure Tyler's trust, I continued. During that time, I suggest you both consider what kind of family you want Tyler to grow up in. What does that mean for us? Amanda asked quietly. It means you have 7 days to show me that your apologies are about more than money. 7 days to prove that you can treat people with dignity regardless of their perceived wealth. 7 days to convince me that Tyler's inheritance should come with parents who deserve it. As they prepared to leave, David turned back to me. Mom, I love you. Money or no money, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. But love isn't just words, it's actions. And your actions on Saturday told me everything I needed to know about how you see me. After they left, I sat in my quiet cottage and thought about the conversation. I wasn't angry anymore. I was sad. Sad that it had taken money to get their attention. Sad that Tyler had seen his grandmother humiliated. Sad that my own family had been so comfortable with treating me as less than I was. But I was also hopeful. For the first time in years, David and Amanda would have to consider their actions and their values. They would have to decide what kind of people they wanted to be, not just what kind of lifestyle they wanted to maintain. Tyler's future was secure regardless of what they decided. But their future as a family, that was entirely up to them. The week that followed was the longest of my relationship with David and Amanda. I received daily phone calls, sometimes tearful apologies from Amanda, sometimes confused questions from David, always requests for guidance on how to fix what had happened. I gave them the same answer each time: show me, don't tell me. On Friday afternoon, Tyler called me directly. Grandma Helen? Mommy and Daddy said I have a college fund from you. My heart clenched. Yes, sweetheart. I wanted to make sure you could go to any school you wanted. But why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to work hard in school for your own reasons, not because you knew you had money waiting for you. Am I rich now? I laughed softly. You have opportunities, Tyler. Whether you're rich depends on what you do with those opportunities. Mommy's been crying a lot. Did I do something wrong? No, baby. You did nothing wrong. The adults are just figuring some things out. Are you still going to be my grandma? The question broke my heart. Forever and always, Tyler. No matter what happens with the grown-up stuff, I will always be your grandma. Saturday morning, David arrived at my door alone. Where's Amanda? I asked. She's at home. She said she needed to think about some things before she could face you again. We sat in my kitchen over coffee, and for the first time in years, David really looked at me, not as an obligation or a burden, but as his mother. I've been thinking about Saturday, he said. About how I felt watching Richard and Susan show off their money. How did you feel? Proud. I felt proud that my wife had successful parents who could give Tyler things I couldn't afford. He paused. And I felt embarrassed that my mother couldn't do the same. The honesty hurt, but it was necessary. I was embarrassed by you, Mom. And that makes me sick now, because you were actually doing more for Tyler than any of us, and I was too stupid to see it. Why do you think you felt that way? David ran his hands through his hair. Because I measured worth by what people could show off. I thought Richard and Susan were better grandparents because they bought expensive gifts and talked about their money. And what do you think now? Now I think I'm an idiot who almost lost the most generous person in Tyler's life because I cared more about appearances than character. I reached across the table and took his hand. What have you learned this week? I learned that you've been taking care of Tyler's future while letting us believe we were taking care of you. I learned that every dollar Amanda and I saved for college was just a drop in the bucket compared to what you'd already secured for him. He looked up at me. And I learned that I want to be the kind of father who raises Tyler to value people for who they are, not what they have. What about Amanda? David sighed. Amanda is struggling. She's realized that everything she thought she knew about our family was wrong. She's also realized that her behavior toward you has been. He searched for the word, unacceptable. Is she sorry because she was wrong, or because she got caught? I think she's sorry because she saw herself clearly for the first time. And she didn't like what she saw. Sunday evening, Amanda called and asked if she could come over alone. When she arrived, her eyes were red from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Helen, I need to say some things, and I need you to listen to all of it before you respond. I nodded. I have been a terrible daughter-in-law to you. Not because I didn't know about Tyler's trust fund, but because I made assumptions about your worth based on your lifestyle. She took a shaky breath. I treated you like you were lucky to be included in our family instead of recognizing that we were lucky to have you. She continued, I announced to strangers that you couldn't afford gifts, and I let them laugh at you. I made Tyler witness that. I made your grandson see his grandmother being humiliated, and I'm the one who caused it. Amanda was crying now, but she kept talking. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve Tyler's trust fund. And I definitely don't deserve a second chance. But, I prompted gently. But I'm asking for one anyway. Not because of the money. Tyler's future is secure whether you forgive me or not. I'm asking because I want to be the kind of person who deserves to be Tyler's mother. I want to be someone who would never treat any family member the way I treated you. I studied her face. What's changed, Amanda? I saw a recording of Tyler's party. A recording. One of the other parents posted videos on social media. I watched myself humiliate you in front of all those people. I watched Tyler's confused face when everyone laughed at his grandmother. I watched David stand there and say nothing while his mother was being mocked. She wiped her eyes. And I realized that if Tyler grows up to treat people the way I treated you, I will have failed him completely. What do you want to do about that? I want to earn your forgiveness. Not by apologizing, but by becoming someone who would never need to apologize for treating family poorly. How? I've enrolled in counseling to figure out why I care so much about what other people think. I've resigned from the country club committees that were making me focus on status instead of substance. And I've started volunteering at the senior center to learn how to interact with older adults with the respect they deserve. I was surprised by the specificity of her actions. You've done all that this week. I did it because I needed to understand myself before I could ask you to trust me with Tyler's future. We talked for another hour about her plans, her realizations, and her commitment to change. When she left, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. Monday morning, I called James Morrison. James, I've made my decision about Tyler's trust fund. What would you like to do? I want to keep the trust exactly as it is, but I want to add some additional provisions. What kind of provisions? I want David and Amanda to serve as co-trustees starting when Tyler turns 16. I want them to learn how to manage substantial money responsibly. And if they prove unworthy of that responsibility, then they'll be removed as trustees, but Tyler will still have access to his inheritance. His future isn't dependent on their growth, but their role in his financial life is. Anything else? Yes. I want to establish a family foundation that Tyler will eventually run. I want him to learn that wealth comes with responsibility to help others. That afternoon, I invited David, Amanda, and Tyler to my cottage for dinner. When they arrived, Tyler ran to hug me as if nothing had changed between the adults. Grandma, Daddy said you want to tell me about college money. I do, sweetheart. But first, let's have dinner. Over my homemade spaghetti and meatballs, I explained to Tyler that he had money set aside for his education and future, but that it came with responsibilities. What kind of responsibilities? He asked. The responsibility to work hard in school, to treat people kindly, and to use your opportunities to help others. Like helping kids who don't have college money? Exactly like that. Tyler nodded seriously. I can do that. After dinner, while Tyler played in the backyard, I sat with David and Amanda to discuss the new trust provisions. You're making us trustees? Amanda asked, surprised. You're Tyler's parents. You should be involved in decisions about his future. But you'll need to learn how to handle significant money responsibly. What if we mess it up? David asked. Then you'll be replaced as trustees, but Tyler will still be protected. This is about giving you the chance to grow, not risking his security. Amanda looked thoughtful. What about the family foundation? Tyler will need to learn that wealth is a tool for helping others, not just for personal comfort. The foundation will teach him to think beyond himself. And us? What's our role? Your role is to raise a young man who understands that his privileges come with responsibilities. To model the values you want him to carry forward. David reached for my hand. Mom, thank you for giving us this chance. Thank you for showing me that you can change. Amanda smiled through tears. Tyler is lucky to have a grandmother who secured his future and then made sure he'd have parents worthy of it. As they prepared to leave, Tyler hugged me tightly. Grandma, are you rich? I smiled. I'm rich in all the ways that matter, sweetheart. What ways are those? I have a grandson who loves me, a son who learned to value people over money, and a daughter-in-law who's becoming the person she wants to be. Tyler nodded solemnly. That does sound rich. 6 months later, Tyler's 8th birthday party was a small gathering in my backyard. Amanda helped me make homemade cake, David organized simple games, and Tyler's gift table held thoughtful presents rather than expensive showpieces. Richard and Susan attended but seemed subdued, perhaps finally understanding that their wealth couldn't compete with the security I'd provided for Tyler. When Tyler opened my gift, a book about young entrepreneurs who started with nothing, he hugged me and said, "This is perfect, Grandma. It's about becoming rich the right way." Amanda smiled at me across the yard, and I could see she understood the lesson Tyler was learning, that true wealth isn't about what you can buy, but about what you can build, protect, and pass on to those you love. The humiliation at Tyler's 7th birthday party had taught us all something valuable. It had shown David and Amanda who they were when they thought money was scarce, and it had shown me that my family was capable of growth when confronted with truth. Tyler's trust fund was secure, his parents were learning to manage wealth responsibly, and his grandmother was finally being treated with the respect she'd always deserved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't punishment, it's giving people the chance to become who they should have been all along, and then watching them rise to meet that challenge. And sometimes the greatest gift isn't money in a trust fund. It's teaching a child that true wealth comes from character, generosity, and the wisdom to treat every person with dignity, regardless of what they appear to be able to afford.